Welcome this Thursday morning to Breakfast Central. Thank you for starting the morning with us. It's a rainy morning in different parts of Lagos, so depending on where you are, we're hoping that it's not really intense and terrible and that you're able to make your way to work or whatever your plans are this morning. Thank you for joining us. I am Olive Emodi.
And I am Osaogi Ogmawa. And of course, you're talking about the rains, another opportunity to remember brothers and sisters who are in Borno State. The newspapers report that more than 1 million people have been affected by the flooding. And of course, more than 400,000 are currently displaced in Borno State. So this is an opportunity to once again remember those ones. And of course, in every way that you can support them, please support them. And it's another opportunity to remind everyone, of how government must be held to account in every way, shape, or form. That if situations like, if there's going to be a proper investigation into the cause of this flooding, and we find out that it is because that dam was not rehabilitated since 1994, it's another opportunity for us to see the effect of not holding government accountable, of a failing government that is not held to account. No matter how many times anybody, sorry for that, no matter how many times that Governor Zulum rolls his trousers up to his waist and wades through the water, no matter how many times that the vice president does the same thing, swims in that water to show solidarity, that's not what the people want. Those are only just photo ops, and people want accountability. They want to see that that dam is fixed, if that is the main reason behind the flooding. If it's not, if we say it's climate change, it's a natural disaster, okay.
So that argument about whether or not it's climate change, I don't know that it holds water at this point, right? And I do agree with you. Majority of the reasons we're seeing for that flood happening is the dam that wasn't, the dam that broke. This is not the first time we've seen dams be, overflowing their borders, and being let loose. But the dam breaking, like you said earlier, it happened in 1994. 30 years later, the same thing is happening again. When government is not doing what it's meant to do, sometimes, in situations like this, you then start to see this as an outcome. Because if there are reports, unconfirmed reports, about how there was monies, I think, monies that were disbursed for the management of that. I cannot confirm nor deny that, which is why I hope that investigation will be done. I think they made reference to it as ecological budget or whatever it is. I can't confirm or deny that. But it's important that we say that an investigation be done and government should be held accountable. I saw a tweet, which I'm going to take later because that's our focus today on what Nigerians are saying, where someone said, oh, don't blame the government. But who will you blame? Especially, you can't call it a natural disaster if we can see a cause. That this happened, that's why this happened. We can't call it an act of God if you say that the dam broke and the dam should have been maintained and the dam was not properly maintained. Looking at the faces of these people, have you seen the stories of parents saying they can't find their children, they haven't seen their children in the past 24, 48 hours? The trauma, imagine going to bed and waking up, going to bed in your house, waking up the next day homeless, becoming an internally displaced person. And I'm really hoping that we can have more people have conversations about this, because it's easy for us to show sympathy and solidarity when there is crisis in the West or in different parts of the world. This is a crisis that has hit home. 70% of a whole state submerged underwater. It is a crisis that needs urgent attention. It needs more Nigerians to speak up. But more importantly, now is the time for us to be our brother's keeper, to look out for ourselves, and again, to hold our government accountable. Yeah. Now, speaking about holding the government accountable, yesterday, on News Central Television, we had an exclusive interview with the Labour Party presidential candidate, His Excellency Peter Obi, who was interviewed by our MD and editor-in-chief here on News Central. And it was quite an interesting interview. Several conversations we had, one of which was holding the government to account. Like, the interviewer, our MD, said that Peter Obi has been a voice in the wilderness, calling and crying and holding the government to account, some form of strong opposition, talking about how the government has, in a way, been very, very exorbitant in how it's been run, saying that you can't ask people to cut, those are not the exact words, but you can't ask people to manage when you're not doing the same thing. So there are so many areas that were looked at. The budget was looked at, the allocation to agriculture was looked at, how we can, the ministers, number of ministers that we have in the country, conversations about area, office of the First Lady. He then made reference to himself whilst he was governor. And as usual, he kept saying, go and verify. He would give you statistics, he would give you numbers, and he would tell you, go and verify. You know, I think the one thing that stood out for me in that conversation, one of my favorite quotes was when he said, you know, when he was being asked about bigotry, tribalism, and, you know, religion and the role that it plays in our government, and he says that when a politician cannot offer you consistency, commitment, you know, they then start to wave the flag of tribalism and religion. So these are tools, and I'm hoping that Nigerians we can see beyond our noses, that it is the same problems that bedeviled the whole nation. All of us are in the same country suffering. Yorubas are not buying fuel cheaper than Igbos. Igbos are not buying fuel cheaper than Yorubas. We all have to bear the brunt of whatever our politicians, whatever decisions they make. So that at the end of the day, when we start to fight these tribal wars, we realize that it is the politicians, it is a tool in the hands of politicians to sort of place us against each other, you know, to put us against each other, make us fight each other, because a house divided within itself cannot stand. So I think that was one of the, you know, key things that stood out for me from the interview.
Yeah, you know, and I think, you know, yeah, you would expect that in 2024, that should be popular knowledge, and everybody should know, you know, of the tactics that politicians play when it's time for elections. You know, they need to divide people in order to be able to win those elections. You know, and everyone should know that. So it's not the first time that he's speaking about, you know, stuff like that. We've also heard many other people say similar things, but. Yes, you know, that was an important part of that conversation. Another part, you know, that stood out for me generally was his explanation on how Nigeria still is not managing its scarce resources well enough. And he condemned, of course, you know, once again, the seeming wastage of billions and billions of Nigeria's money on frivolous projects and projects that would not directly benefit the Nigerian people. He mentioned the vice president's residence. He mentioned, of course, you know, the presidential jet and a couple of other things like that. Talked about the budget, you know, and how there was the 3 trillion naira inflation, you know, allegation back then by Senator Ningi, and many other things, you know, which for me are very, very strong points that must be made for every Nigerian. And nobody should belittle those points and say that they don't matter. They do.
They do matter,
because every single penny, if Nigeria continues to tell you, the politicians, those enough continue to tell you that there's no money for this or no money for that, then you should be able to hold them to account as to why they are then wasting the little money that we do not have. And again, just to remind everyone that till today, the 12th of September 2024, there is still no clarity as to how Nigeria was able to afford a new presidential jet. Where did the money come from? Who approved the money to be spent, and how much was spent? And how it's an opportunity for everyone to really ask themselves, like, how does your government just suddenly have a new jet without being able to explain to you how it purchased that jet? And it's not saying that they mismanaged money or they stole money, but you should explain.
And to think about the fact that they initially, first of all, tried to gaslight or, you know, deny in a way. They weren't very forthcoming about that. And part of the criticism leveled against the presidential jet is that the presidential jet cost 3 times the budget for primary health care. There's so many other things that were highlighted. The cost of the Aso Rock Clinic vis-a-vis the cost of healthcare in Nigeria. Yeah. The cost of the National Assembly Library, you know, vis-a-vis, you know, the fact that the nation doesn't even have a library. The country doesn't have a national library, but we are pumping in that much. So again, where do our priorities lie as a people, as a nation? Do we really value the life, the well-being of the average Nigerians? And whilst as a leader, as a politician, you're asking people to tighten their seatbelts, are you doing the same? You can't be asking people to manage when you can't, you know, you're not seen to be doing same. We can't give you the full details of that interview, but you can check out our YouTube channel at News Central TV, where you can get to see the exclusive interview we had with His Excellency Peter Obi. It's on our News Central channel. Watch and please share. Let's share with you what our top stories are this morning, and then we'll bring you breakfast headlines. APC acknowledges economic struggles and promises reforms. What reforms are they promising, and can they deliver on this? We'll find out shortly. Court sets 10 million naira bill for 10 end bad governance protesters. The matter is still ongoing. We'll find out what the next steps are. Thousands evacuated from flooded areas in Maiduguri. Our hearts go out to our brothers who are living there. And the IDP camps surge in Maiduguri flood crisis. as expected. We review the newspaper front pages as well. We open the phone line so you can join. And all these we bring this morning. But first, let's bring you breakfast headlines.
We begin breakfast headlines in West Africa, Nigeria, where the well, I think we would probably have to get into that story. Yes, the United Nations has raised concerns over the potential outbreak of cholera in internally displaced persons camps in Maiduguri, Borno State, following severe flooding in the region. According to a report by the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, immediate needs include food, protection, shelter, and access to clean water. The report said some water resources have been contaminated, increasing the risk of disease outbreaks, including cholera. Meanwhile, the Nigerian Red Cross has called for urgent donations to support victims of the devastating floods in Maiduguri, Borno State, northeast Nigeria. The Red Cross, via its statement signed by its president, Oluyemisi Adega, says that the flood waters have continued to rise, thus the need to reach out to displaced residents in a bid to avert a humanitarian catastrophe. The Red Cross says that its volunteers have already mobilized to the city and called on residents to provide humanitarian support to affected communities. Still in the news, and of course still talking floods, several communities in Yenagoa, the Bayelsa State capital, have been submerged again after relentless downpours from Tuesday through Wednesday. The floods affected areas including Azikoro, Ekeki, Okaka, Swali, and many others, leaving residents in a state of anxiety. The rising waters of the Epe Creek and River Non have compounded the crisis, heightening fears that this year's floods may be particularly devastating. The federal government has also issued warnings about risk posed by increasing water levels across various states. In Bayelsa, a state sitting 6 feet below sea level and prone to floods, the situation is particularly critical. Still in the news, the administration of President Bola Tinubu has introduced compressed natural gas at 230 naira per litre as a strategic move to reduce fuel costs and provide Nigerians with an affordable alternative to gasoline and diesel. This initiative offers a cheaper and cleaner option compared to petrol, which currently sells for over 900 naira per litre, highlighting the president's commitment to easing the cost of living and mitigating the impact of fuel subsidy removal. It was launched under the president's directive of the Presidential Compressed Natural Gas Initiative, which aims to deliver widespread benefits by significantly lowering fuel prices. An attempt by a young Nigerian to commit suicide was averted Wednesday afternoon in the Ajah area of Lagos. The young man had climbed onto the advertising board railings on the pedestrian bridge at the Ilaje bus stop in Ajah, where he tied a rope on the railing, passed it around his head with the intention to jump off and hang himself. However, the quick intervention of eagle-eyed passers-by prevented the tragedy from happening. One of them got onto the railings and clung onto the young man, while others helped to hold onto him from the pedestrian bridge. Sad story there. But still in the news, smallholder women farmers in Abuja have criticized the Federal Capital Administration over its non-commitment to agriculture following a reduction in the agricultural budget for 2024 to less than 1% of its total budgetary expenditures. While speaking to newsmen in Abuja, they say the allocation of less than 8% of the FCTA's 1.5 trillion naira budget is abysmal, poor, below the average 10% benchmark of Maputo Declaration for Agriculture, and will lead to higher food prices. They also urge the administration to allocate more resources to agricultural inputs so as to effectively tackle food shortages. And that's all on Breakfast Headlines at this hour. Let's go back to Breakfast Central and get into our top stories. I am Osaogie Ogbonwa.
The recent flood in Maiduguri, the Borno State capital, has resulted in significant devastation with many homes, schools, and businesses submerged. The crisis has forced numerous families to seek refuge in IDP camps within the city as the government provides temporary relief. News Central's Umaru Kirawa completes the report.
More families trooped into government-designated camps in Maiduguri, the Borno State capital. As the devastating water recedes, the scale of destruction is becoming clearer, with many neighborhoods rendered uninhabitable.
Ta yanzu haka ma wallahi sauran yara na ban san inda halin da suke ciki ba. Muna roƙon Ubangiji Allah ya takaita mana abin da Allah ya jarrabe mu da shi.
I don't know how refugees suffers once they are in the camps, but now I realize that really they need help. We appreciate the support of the state government by packing us here and also giving us enough accommodation and at least giving us 3 meals square in a day.
I did not see my junior brothers and my father till now, presently now.
Cash assistance and other forms of support are being distributed to displaced families now residing in IDP camps across the city.
A sum of 10,000 naira to each and every heads of household that are affected by floods. And I also want to inform you that a few days ago, luckily enough, we received 3 billion naira from the federal government as flood intervention fund. So we are using this fund to support the communities that are affected by the flood.
Minister of Water Resources, under whose jurisdiction the Alo Dam is coming today to Maiduguri with a view with his technical team with a view to inspecting the Alo Dam and taking both remedial short-term and long-term measures that will avert such ugly scenario in future.
The flooding has disrupted daily life and crippled the local economy, with businesses and services severely impacted.
A yanzu haka akwai yara na waɗanda ban same su ba guda biyu. A'a suna raye, a'a ba sa raye ban sani ba sai Allah. Amma wa'ansu suna samu su ban samu ba. Tun ɗazu haka hankali na a tashe.
These families patiently wait to access medical services at the camps. Some families are stranded, trying to connect with their loved ones.
While trying to cover the 2024 flood disaster that bedeviled Maiduguri, the Borno State capital, even journalists, we were stopped here at the State Secretariat, Musa Usman Secretariat, Maiduguri, the Borno State capital. We hope things get better and people get back to their homes very soon. In Maiduguri for News Central, Umaru Kirawa.
That was a really sad story there by Umar Kirawa. Osaoge, what did you think about it?
I mean, like I said, it's a pathetic situation. And we are expecting that, the federal government and the state government, of course, plays its role in providing some level of succor. But I don't think it should stop there. There has to be proper questions asked as to whether the government failed to prevent this disaster. And I think we need to value and respect the human life enough in every part of Nigeria to be able to ask those questions. But moving away from Borno State, let's come back, of course, and talk about national issues. The All Progressive Congress, APC, has acknowledged that President Bola Tinubu's policies have led to economic hardship in Nigeria. Now, this was stated by the party's National Publicity Secretary, Barrister Felix Morka, in response to criticism from a former party official, Salihu Mohammed Lukman. Lukman had accused the party of bad governance and urged opposition leaders to unite against the APC in 2027.
While acknowledging the increased economic hardship, Morka defended the president's reforms as necessary to address long-standing economic problems, noting that President Tinubu is taking bold measures to reset the country's long-broken economy, to improve national security, and to restore the country to wholesome and sustainable development. We're joined this morning by public affairs analyst Abraham Great. Good morning, Abraham Great. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you for having me this morning.
All right. Morka said that the president is making very bold reforms. He's taking very bold decisions to be able to restore our country and restore our economy. Do you agree with him?
Well, I agree with him to the extent that we've all seen and witnessed. Number one, we had a president who seems to be very ideological. We can see that from the way he led his campaign, but we can also see that from his antics, from when he's gotten involved from the early 90s in the Nigerian, political terrain. You can see that he's a man that is consistent with his ideas, with ideals, with the things that he want to do. Some of us, maybe old enough will remember him in the 90s, particularly when he became governor of Lagos State. Before then, we knew what Lagos was. But saying that, translating that onto the grand scale of, at the national level is a different ball game. But where we will give kudos to him is that I'm not sure about how his vision is trickling down yet, but we can see a visionary leader. We can see someone who actually, in his mind and consistently say to us, he seems to have an idea of where he's taking the nation to. But the thing is that the people are suffering. The people are, people are going through a lot in the country. And we keep hearing from the government or from the president that it will be tough at the beginning and stuff like that. But there are immediate measures that can alleviate a lot of this pain on people. And one of it is to ensure that, I'll put it this way, I've always spoken about the Maslow hierarchy of need. I'm sure all of us remember Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of need. And Maslow says that the basic human need is a physiological need, which is water, air, shelter. We have to ensure that every Nigerian have access to electricity, no matter what it is. No matter the level of reform we're trying to be, we should expedite to ensure that in every nooks and corner of the country, electricity becomes a priority. Number two, we have to ensure that the country is at such a point where everybody, not boreholes that we are fixing everywhere, like any other nation in the world, like Ivory Coast, like Ghana, we see this in developed countries all over the world. You should be able to open the tap. I lived in Ivory Coast for about 5 years in the 90s. I witnessed the war in Liberia, in Sierra Leone. I saw Nigerians' intervention. But one of the things that I continue to admire, even though I lived in Ivory Coast in the 90s, one of the things that I admire about the country is that there is no part of that country you go to that you will not have electricity. There is also no part of Ivory Coast that you go to that you'll be seeing borehole. In every home, you can open the tap and water will run from your tap, from your kitchen. We used to call Ivory Coast Petit Paris. Petit Paris meaning that small Paris. We should be able to turn Nigeria to such. And it's not going to be done just at the national level. It has to be cascaded to the state and also to local level. That every local chairman, governors have to be involved in the reformation of the country.
Yeah, I agree with that, but they probably need to take a cue from the presidency, and seeing the body language of the presidency might make it easier. What the current reality of Nigerians, is, with inflation at 40%, food inflation at 40%, inflation at 33, 32%, I believe. There's many signs that we still don't know where we're headed or what exactly the plan is, or that these things will improve in the near future. The dollar, of course, is currently 1,650 naira exchange rate. But before you even address some of these things, let's go back to one thing that you mentioned. About we knew how Lagos was before the president, Governor Tinubu then came into office. How was Lagos before he came into office as governor?
Well, I was born in Lagos and I grew up in Lagos, but I left Lagos 1997. But having left Lagos 1997, I'm always back in the country every year. Sometimes this year alone, I must have been in Nigeria like 6 or 7 times. Since that 1997, I'm always back in the country no matter what it is. Now, I recall I grew up in Ikeja, and I recall almost every part. I went to school also in Mushi. I was born in Mushi. Almost every part of Lagos, you will pick up dead bodies. I mean, one of the reasons why I told my father I had to leave Nigeria was when my friend Chinedu was killed in Ikeja, where you call Olowu today, at the junction of Olowu. armed robbers came in the middle of the night, not in the middle of the night, around 9:10 in the evening in the Ikeja. During those days, they used to give us the date of when they are coming. And they shot. I also remember in Ezekiel Street, best friend of MKO Abiola, Alaji Sule, was killed right in my front. Like I was living at number 9. They came and they shot the man dead. Those are the kind of things. I mean, you go on the street and you'll be picking up dead bodies. You see dead bodies on the road. Lagos was so unsafe. And I also tell you that before he became governor, Lagos was 7 million people. By the time he was living as the governor of Lagos State, it is already 12 million people in Lagos, nearly double the size. It is not because Lagos all of a sudden became a capital. Lagos has always become a capital, but some of the reforms, some of the initiative that it took make the state a lot safer, also make the state a lot more economically viable. Some of us will argue that, yes, he has his own flaws. He has some of the things that we can blame him for, his supremacy, the way he operates and stuff like that. But there's no doubt in the fact that we saw a leader amongst every governor in every part of the country at the time. Don't forget, Lagos is the smallest state in the country. And it is not because of the geographical location. Leadership plays a role. We can also see that in the way in which it builds succession. Another thing that is arguably something that we can fault him for. But when you look at it consistently since his time, you've seen a foundation that has been laid for a state that continued to go through reform and development. So that's what I pick. When I look at him as a leader, some people hate you for saying the truth about him. But when I look at him as a leader, personally, I've known him since the early 90s, since I was in secondary school. And I've seen his leadership. I don't agree with everything that he does, but I can tell you for a fact, and we can see at the national level, that he's a visionary leader. However, I haven't seen that. It's visionary leadership that I saw growing up.
I was just about to ask that, because you mentioned, about how, first of all, the insecurity and, armed robbery in Nigeria in the 90s was not peculiar to Lagos State. It was everywhere. In Benin, in the southeast, if you remember, there was the Bakassi boys that had to eventually come into, reality, in early 2000s, and that was as a result of the heightened insecurity that happened. If you remember the Anini days itself, those were things that were peculiar across Nigeria in the 90s. It wasn't a Lagos State, thing. And it wasn't necessarily, the emergence of, one person that eventually ended that level of insecurity across Nigeria in 1996 or 1999, I beg your pardon. So there's that part. The visionary leadership that you speak of, that changed the economic trajectory of Lagos State and some of all of that. Why is that so difficult to bring to the national level? And what exactly do you see as different, maybe like a different way of doing things now with the current administration? If we currently have the Naira exchanging at the worst that it has ever been, that's not even up for argument. It's the worst that it has ever been. This is the highest amount of money Nigerians are buying petrol with. We currently still have the highest number of out-of-school children. There's really nothing that is different that you can point out and say, okay, almost 2 years into the current administration, these things seem to be improving. So where is that leadership from Lagos on the national level today?
I'll put it down to a few things. Number one is, it is also known in leadership that one of the key things about leadership is vision. A leader must be able to set the pace and set a vision of where we are going. The next thing that I feel that is important for a leader is the team that you build. Now, one of the things that I could fault this administration for is the fact that you cannot use the same team that you used 25 years ago, 26 years ago to achieve what you want to achieve today, because the level of energy might no longer be the same. The drive might be the same, the passion might still be there, but the strength may no longer be there. Now, in saying that, you have to also look at the dynamics of how politics works. In some ways, A leader may want to move in a fashion, but then they are politically constrained in that this region wants you to do this, that one wants you to do that. So you're trying to please everybody, but a great leader must be able to break through all of that and be able to appoint the best. Let me quickly, if you can give me the time, let me quickly take you to the United Arab Emirates. One of the things that builds the United Arab Emirates that we all go to today, Dubai, is the fact that when they appoint a minister, I was shocked. I've been there, I go there often, but one of the things that shocked me was my wife was doing a master's and one of their ministers was doing that master's with my wife in the UK at some point. And the overall head of police was with my wife doing the master's. And guess what? One of the things that they do is that once they appoint you over a place, you will appoint or you will employ the best mind anywhere in the world. So that person will be the one actually doing the work. You are qualified. You are Emirati. You are citizen of the UAE. But you will bring the best project manager, the best person on your field, either is from the US, either is from Nigeria. You look at one of the best buildings in Dubai today. It's designed by a Nigerian. But Nigeria, we are too insular. Everything, every office is, everywhere you turn in Nigeria is Nigerians. Every nation that has been reformed today, every industrialization involves people from other nations. Every great country is built by nationals from everywhere in the world. As Nigerians, you put me as the Minister of Information, or you put me as Minister of Works, I'm looking at bringing my cousin, I'm looking at compensating people politically. When are we going to wake up and get to that point where you know that you are being assigned over this territory and you are bringing the best of mind anywhere in the world? Nigerians will still work with them, but we need to bring in experts from everywhere. We have a nation to form. That's one of the gaps that I see.
So should our focus right now be on looking for the best minds from the West and different parts of the world and importing into Nigeria? Are you saying that so far we do not have people that are qualified to do these jobs that are not necessarily related to these people in power?
Well, I'm not saying to the extent that that there is tribalism or there is nepotism or what have you. I'm just saying everybody is related to everyone in Nigeria. But I'm saying that we have a nation to build, so we need experts from everywhere. Look at even Jerusalem, look at Babylon, look every part of the world that has experienced reform at any point. And even if they have to go and bring them as slaves or they bring them as experts, you need people from everywhere, because no problem can be solved at the same level that it was created.
Okay, well, a lot of people wouldn't agree with with your point. I think there's Nigerians brilliant enough to build Nigeria if we are.
Let me add this to it for you. Let me quickly add this to you. By grace and privilege, I've lived out of Nigeria for close to 30 years of my years. I left Nigeria as a teenager. I've worked in different sectors and different industry. I disagree with any Nigerian that disagree with me that we have enough Nigerians to solve every problem. The best countries in the world still brings in Nigerians and people from India, people from China. You do not have all the solution to fix your own problem. The best, every reformation in the world involve people from every part of the world. Yeah. Nigeria needs the world.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You can get counsel, you can get advice from experts from different parts of the world. Doesn't mean that you're going to make a Chinese person Nigeria's Minister for Agriculture.
No, it does not mean that you make them the minister. Like I give the
but we already have that here. We already have expatriate workers across the whole country. They are being guarded by our military. They are everywhere. If you look at half of the road construction that is done here is done by expatriate workers.
In Nigeria, expatriates are in Nigeria in the private sector. I bring a lot of foreign direct investment into Nigeria as well. I bring in expatriates into Nigeria as well. A lot of those people work with private companies and what have you. And I'm not advocating that expatriates or foreigners should come and be ministers. What I'm saying, every area where we need to reform our country, We need mind from every part
All right.
of the world.
All right. So I don't want us to
into-
overflog this. I don't want us to overflog this, because it's not a key part of our conversation this morning. We're trying to have your own perspective or your own assessment of the current administration. You say he's a visionary, leader. He has a vision for Nigeria. All through the campaigns, it was a struggle hearing that vision. He didn't show up for, any TV interviews, even till date. We still don't have an opportunity to have a one-on-one with Mr. President to interview him and hear about this vision that you speak of. And so, it would be nice if you can share, this vision that, Mr. President has for Nigeria. And of course, maybe also let us know with confidence, that you believe that this is what he actually wants for Nigeria. And then also, have you noticed, I asked this before, anything different with the way that we do things today? We still have spent 21 billion naira building a house for the vice president. We still bought a presidential jet that still has not been properly accounted for. We still spend 90 billion naira sending people on Hajj, a religious pilgrimage. So is there any difference in the way that we do things today? And how confident are you that after these 4 years of the current administration, we will have a seemingly better Nigeria?
There is no underestimating how vision and where vision can take you. And whatever you focus on magnifies. If you do not focus on what the president, as the candidate was saying, possibly because you are focused on another candidate, you will not have been hearing his vision. He shared his vision. One of the things that that took people off him was when he talked about he will not do debate, he will rather do town halls. It's better than Balablu or whatever. That's what he was saying, referring to. He did say from the beginning of the campaign that he will not do debate. He will do town halls.
And you think that is good enough?
Well, there are different styles. I'm not saying he's the best.
Okay.
I know personally, and I'm saying this to you personally. I know personally that he had a knee injury just before the primaries. Sorry, not injury, surgery rather. And every campaign, either is in America, either in the UK, has a strategy that they want to go about. His strategy worked and it became, but I knew he was in several town halls. A town hall, in my opinion, is more effective than debate. You've seen that with Kamala Harris right now.
Yeah, but there's nothing stopping you from doing both. Just like we currently are seeing now.
I'm not here to defend the president. I'm saying to you, you wanted my perspective, right? I will not be the one to be queried about it because he's already gone. His strategy worked for him. He has achieved what he wants. We need to also, as media, we need to start. Our energy also need to start focusing on solutions rather than us reiterating, the problems over and over and over. And I give you this. Again, in every country where there has been development, where there has been reformation, industrial revolution, they've not been brought about by federal government. You look at America, for example, we have what we call the tycoons, the John D. Rockefeller, J.P. Morgan, and what have you. It is private sector that reforms the country. But the government must provide enabling environment, which is why I went to Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of need. If the people do not have electricity or people are paying, over the hood for diesel to power their industries, we are not going to have industrial revolution. Those are my qualms. Right. Government need to provide the basic, the basic amenities, the physiological need, what human being and people need to thrive. Now, going back, and I'll go back into the president and what have you. The vision is there. Driving the vision requires the will of the team that you put together. One of the simple things that can be done right now, in my opinion, is something that has been completely overlooked in the country and is driving inflation crazy. The Price Control Act of Nigeria has only, the last time I know that it was amended or written was in 1977. So today, where I have few properties of my parent in the country, but who determines? There's no tribunal anywhere that determines the price of how my mom will say, okay, this is how much she's giving out this house, or this how much, or my property. everybody, two things affecting us. There is no price control in the country. Secondly, we're importing far too much rather than producing.
Okay, I mean, there are people who would argue against price control being a measure, but then let's look at the actual policies that the administration of the day have, sort of kick-started. We know the major policies that have been the, major conversations, the unification of the markets and then the removal of subsidy. Recently, we have found out that it wasn't, removal of subsidy wasn't the main conversation. This time around, it was shortfalls. And some have said that shortfalls is another term to describe subsidies. So share with us your thoughts on these policies, the removal of fuel subsidy, the unification of the exchange market rate. But let's focus first on the removal of fuel subsidy and the recent development with shortfalls.
Well, my understanding of the subsidy regime is that it's a cacophony for endemic or continued corruption. I did mention the names like John D. Rockefeller just now, but you will still know that a lot of his companies are still in major countries like Nigeria, almost all over the world, like ExxonMobil and stuff like this. And I would not want to delve into that because the poverty of most nations is actually triggered for several decades, if not for several decades now, by some of those outside forces. I don't want to go too much into it because it's a very critical critical topic. But I'll say this to you: a government that is wise will remove subsidy, either it is in Nigeria or it is in Mali or it is in Congo, because what you have is people telling you that they took crude and they are bringing back refined products into the country, when in fact statistics says that they might not even be bringing up to 25% of what they are reporting that they are getting subsidies for. I know how that regime works, but it looks like an excuse. The next thing now is, since this has been removed, the funds that we are saving, where is it going to? From what I can see, we have now seen double or triple in some states, federal allocation to state level. We have now seen the willingness from the federal government, particularly the body language of the president, to drive for local government autonomy, ensuring and insisting and consistently advocating for, similar to what he did in Lagos by automating Lagos with SAP, Oracle, to ensure that whatever either is the derivation or the federal allocation, it can go straight to the local government. I'm not one who just focuses on blaming. You can blame government. Since I was born, people have been blaming government. I've been fighting government.
I don't know the perspective about blaming government, I don't know if it's necessarily about blaming government or if it is about holding the government to account. Because the truth is this: the government of the day is the one that is responsible for the welfare and the economy of the country. So if things are not going well, citizens have a right to ask questions, and somebody has to be held responsible. If things are not going right, if the economy is taking a dip, there has to be somebody. And you can't find a solution. If we keep talking about solutions, we have to go back to where the problem originated from, find out if there are consequences and if there's anybody that needs to bear the consequences. And I'd like us now to shift the conversation to the administration's the way in which they have handled situations, criminal matters, or even civilian matters. There are many who have complained about the high-handedness of law enforcement agents in this administration. The protesters were arrested and they've been charged for treason, which we both know that treason is a crime punishable by death. And there are Nigerians who have criticized the lawyers who have said that this is basically the government acting against the rule of law. They're not being subject to the rule of law, and they're being high-handed. So I want you to talk to us about your thoughts regarding the End Bad Governance protests, the arrest of protesters, the charge of treason, and your thoughts in general about how this administration is faring with regards to observing the rights of the average Nigerian.
Thank you very much, and you are very correct that somebody always must be held accountable You're very right in that. And I'm also, what I'm adding to it is that also as citizens, we must also take responsibility as well. Whilst we hold our leaders accountable, we must also remember that we become leaders. And if all we just do is always fight and fight and fight government, we will not, we do not take responsibility. There are some things as citizens that we also might be doing wrong. And we can all fix ourselves from the bottom up. We will one day become the leader that other people will criticize. In terms of what the government is doing, there are different bodies and different parastatals in the country. And we do not live in an anarchy. What that means is that we cannot all just do what we want. There are laws. According to the Constitution of Nigeria, I believe is Section 40 and 45. You see, where one person's right to protest stop, another person, there is also another clause for public interest to be sure that properties are not damaged, that other people's lives are not threatened, that things are not destroyed. So when people go beyond, and most people who protest don't know this, that there are acts to protest. I studied law. So in protest, sometimes you are given, maybe this is 6 miles that you should go, or you are expanding it to 18 miles. In the act, you will give the roads, all the areas that you will cover to the police, and it will be approved for you that this is the area where you are. What we want is that because we are agitated, we want to do things uncontrolled, but we also do not want other aspects of the country.
Sorry, may I interject? May I interject? I want to know which act you're quoting, because if it's the one that I think that you're quoting, what it says is that where the citizens give the direction and the routes, that they're going to pass whilst they're protesting, the police has a right to ensure that they're secure. It did not mandate them to give. I just want to be sure that it's the same one we're talking about.
Now, I don't have the act in top of my head, and I studied law in the UK. In the UK, you would have to, we do protest in the UK, you would have to give where you want to protest to the police. You will give your route, and the police has the right to give to you protection on those routes. That is why you will not see somebody that is carrying placard in the UK to stop the Queen from going to the new Prime Minister going to the Queen. You will not see them branch somewhere else. They will stay on the road that they've been given permission to protest.
But that's really like the UK.
That's in the UK, all right? And, if for any reason, because we still need to know exactly what this case is about, we're going to be speaking with someone right after, we say goodbye to you about, this case. But if for any reason, I'm meant to be protesting, here in Lagos, in Lekki, and for some reason I stumble into Ikate and continue my protest with my placard, is that a treasonable offense in your opinion?
I don't think if treasonable is the word, and I do not think that the law or power should be used to be able to just take people and imprison people. What I'm saying is that.
Well, that's what seems to have been done, and that's what we're referring to. You instead, seem to be, painting the picture, that these protesters went, way above hand. But the main question really is, did you see anything about the End Bad Governance protest that seemed to be treasonable?
Okay, I'm saying what I'm saying on the back end of some of the protests. I was actually in Nigeria. So also, I was a visiting panelist or visited panelist on some of the panels that was set up after ENSA. So I attended some of the. So I'm speaking from the back end that we need responsibility. We cannot just blame law enforcement. There are also laws in the country that we all must also try to adhere to. But let me quickly finish this. I'm not saying that government should use the tool of the law to oppress people. No, that's not what I'm saying. But also what I'm saying is that as citizens, we also must take responsibility. And finally, like I said, someone is was recently arrested at the airport. And my take on that is finally to say that if there are invitations from the DSS, or if there are rules around something, obey the law.
All right. I believe that you're referring to the NLC chairman, Joe Ajaero, who was arrested at the airport and has been released. And part of what had been the criticism leveled against that is they invited him, they asked him questions, and if they wanted to arrest him, they should have arrested him, much earlier. But I mean, these are ongoing conversations, and we have Deji Adeyonju joining us next to give us more details about the End Bad Governance protest as well. Thank you very much, Abraham. Great for joining us. Let's now move on to Deji Adeyonju. A federal high court in Abuja has granted bail to 10 Nigerians charged with treason for participating in last month's End Bad Governance protests. The judge, Emeka Nwite, set bail at 10 million naira each, with one surety who must have property worth the bail sum in Abuja. The sureties must also submit their passports to the court.
Now, the 10 defendants were arraigned on September 2nd and pleaded not guilty to all 6 charges, including inciting mutiny and conspiring to commit treason. The case has sparked a controversy, with many arguing that the charges are an attempt to silence dissenting voices. Joining us is human rights lawyer Deji Adeyonju. Good morning, Mr. Adeyonju. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, good morning, and thank you for having me again on the show.
Thanks for your time. Let's get straight into your views on the charges against these protesters. Do you find them completely shocking, or right on the letter?
Beyond shocking, if I must say, but this is a tyrannical regime. This is a regime that has no regard for democracy. This is a regime that has sworn that it must violate human rights, violate citizens' fundamental rights to freedom of assembly, freedom of expression, even freedom of the press. A regime that attacks journalists at protest venue, attacks on armed protesters. Why should anybody be shocked that such a regime will arrest, detain, and arbitrarily violate citizens' right to liberty guaranteed by the Constitution? Yes, one will have thought that a chief protester himself, someone who once called for revolution in this country, will respect rights of citizens to freedom of assembly. But alas, he has no regard. He has sworn that he's going to ensure that dissent is crushed in the country, and this is most regrettable. However, we must continue to urge citizens to forge ahead and challenge the government and hold the government accountable, and continue to press for the government to end bad governance, end corruption, end insecurity, end hunger, end inflation. Those are the issues. We refuse to be distracted by this never do well and government that has no intention of being held accountable.
All right. Let's talk about the court process so far. The End Bad Governance protesters have been granted bail to the tune of 10 million naira each, and sureties worth same sum, who must also be resident in Abuja. They've been asked to also submit their passports as well. Are you okay with the bail conditions? And have they been able to fulfill the bail conditions? What's the current update regarding that?
We are already in the process of filing a motion for variation this morning at the Federal High Court. The reason is because majority of the protesters, some of them don't even live in Abuja. They were arrested in different locations in the country. Someone who was arrested in Kaduna, some arrested in Bauchi. How do you want him to get a surety with landed property within jurisdiction? So those are the conditions. Some do not even have international passports, So those are the reasons why we are filing for motion for variation this morning. We are just right in the process. That's why I'm not even in the office. We are right in the process of just filing the motion for variation.
And just to double check, whilst this motion is being filed, they are still remanded in the custody of the prison, right?
Yes, because as long as protesters are not able to meet, the protesters have been granted bail are not able to meet the condition, yes, they will remain in custody. And you are aware that it is the vacation judge that is seized of the matter, jurisdiction of the matter. And also, additionally, if we're interested to know that there are almost 115 other protesters within the Federal Capital Territory jurisdiction that have been detained by the order of the court, but that have not been arraigned. Only 10. Michael Adaramoye, aka Lenin, Comrade Lenin, and 9 others who were arraigned before Justice Nwete's court. So we are also in the process of getting a date to vacate the remand order in respect of the other 115 protesters who are within FCT. And additionally, there are over 1,000 protesters in prisons across the country, in Kano, in Katsina, in Sokoto, and in other parts of the country.
Yeah, okay. I mean, also, to clarify, some of these protesters were, that are being charged now, were they all picked up in the FCT, or were they arrested in different parts of the country?
They were arrested in different parts of the country, and just very simple. Let me borrow the words of our leader, Femi Falana, who said that the government should make a U-turn from this evil path and discontinue trial and charges against the protesters, because protest can never be a crime.
Okay, I also want to ask, because we need to go, is there any information that we have about PDOM Nigeria, the young man who was also arrested in River State in Port Harcourt, and of course, kept in police custody for many days before, of course, everyone found out. Do you have any information on that case?
Well, basically, I do not know any PDOM. However, my client, Isaac Bristol, who has been arraigned, his bail application was taken yesterday, and my Lord Justice Nwete has adjourned to the 27th for ruling on the bail application. But I am aware that the police claim that they have a man called PDOM in custody. We urge them to release him or charge him before the court, and so that he can have his day in court. The said PDOM, in my view, has not committed any crime. And if he has committed any crime for being a journalist, then he should have his day in court. He should not be taken arbitrarily. And I am also sure that the police have several other people, maybe even 100, in custody who criticize the government for dissent, who are journalists doing their work, who are not very much popular,
okay, we seem to be struggling a bit with the connection, and we're hoping that that's sorted.
The letters of our constitution as it regards to freedom.
All right, Deji, I think my final question would be regarding Isaac Bristol as well. The last time that we interviewed David Hundain, he mentioned that in a conversation with Isaac Bristol over the phone, Isaac Bristol had mentioned that there were attempts on his life and that something was sprayed in his cell and he was even coughing, and they had tried without his permission to inject him with some form of substance. We'd like to ask, if you have more details on this and if you can give us clarity. And if true, has there been any investigation in this regard?
Unfortunately, I cannot confirm or deny this. My brief is basically to defend Isaac Bristol in court. I do not have any further thing to say as regard to that particular issue. I have been busy handling the matter in court, and I do not know around the legal representation in that regard.
All right. Deji Adeyanju, thank you very much for joining us. We look forward to having you again after filing the processes in court regarding the bill for the current, the End Bad Governance protesters. We hope we can have you again, maybe with some measure of good news. Let's see how that goes.
Thank you for having me.
Now it's time to find out what major stories are making headlines across Nigeria this Thursday morning. We're going to be having these conversations with Chris Kende Wandu from CKN News. Good morning, and thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
All right. We kick off with the Punch newspapers this morning, I believe, and see what we can find over there. Of course, one of the major conversations is talking mostly about the flood in different parts of northern Nigeria, mostly in Borno State. But of course, in Bayelsa State, like it was in the news this morning, there's also concerns about a rising water level in Bayelsa State. 2023 was one of the worst years as well for flooding in parts of Nigeria, including Bayelsa.
Bayelsa, exactly.
So, of course, our hearts go out to them, and we hope that they're able to arrest or tackle the situation before it gets completely worse. We kick off this morning. I think I would just go ahead and start with the Punch newspapers, and then we get to bring our guest in. It says here, Borno flood, 1 million persons affected, 414,000 displaced. Death toll hits 30. Victims sleep on streets. NEMA opens 9 IDP camps. Bayelsa flooded after downpour. We just spoke about that. Student loan beneficiaries lament delayed allowance. And also hunger protesters get 100 million naira bail. If you remember, it's 10 of them with 10 million naira bail each. And of course, they are barred from further demonstrations. Federal government to register untitled lands. That's also on the Punch this morning. Top of the screen on the Punch, it says here how governors spent $50 billion excess crude funds. And that's from the NASG. Monkeypox outbreak spreads to 23 states. Marketers, refiners demand total subsidy removal. That's also on the Punch newspapers this morning. We can also find here, INEC warns against violence as police deploy 35,000 officers. It would be great that, we have a situation where every time that there's violence in the elections, or not just violence, people promoting violence prior to the elections, people talking about, or warning a certain group of people to not come out to vote, and they eventually see those people attacked during the election. It would be great if the police arrested those people and prosecuted them for electoral violence. That way, INEC wouldn't need to warn against violence in the elections 2 years after the elections, don't you think?
Food for thought.
All right.
Anyway, let's go to the Vanguard newspaper. On the next front page of the Vanguard newspaper, IMF to federal government, protect the poor from impact of petrol price hike. Says petrol still selling below market price, calls for product availability competition. IMF's right, says experts. State of the nation, Tinubu's government sliding into fascism, says Afenifere. Borno flood, we're still trapped, can't access work, business places, says victims. Will partner states to combat flood, says VP Shatima. Eguavoin is still in charge of Super Eagles. At the top of the paper, treason. Court grants 10 end bad governance protesters 100 million naira bill. Edo gubernatorial elections. Tension as IGP and Obaseki, PDP disagree. We'll deploy 35,000 policemen, 8,000 other security agents. IGP Egbetokun says peace. They refuse to sign peace accord, it seems. Anyway, Finance Minister Customs meets to implement zero duty on food imports. I think we have one more paper and then we can get into the conversation.
Yes, the Daily Independent comes up next. That should be on your screen as well in a bit. It says the food scarcity hits Maiduguri as tomato farmers lose 1 billion naira. Really pathetic. Over 1 million people are affected by flood, says Governor Zulum. Court grants 100 million naira end bad governance bail, protesters bail rather. It says NCDC warns of imminent surge of Lassa fever, confirms 983 cases. Back to, bottom of your screen there, it says we're moving back to Abacha days, if not careful, Afenifere says. And also federal government markets 100 billion naira creative economy growth plan to corporate Nigeria. Final story that we can take this morning, NLC debunks allegation that Ajero snubbed DSS invitation. Let's start the conversation with the Afenifere claim here on the Daily Independent. It says we're moving back to Abacha days, if not careful. Mr. Wandu.
They'll have their reasons, and to a large extent, their reasons may be germane as well. Apart from that, I also watched an interview with the former National Vice Chairman of APC. In the North yesterday on one of the programs, and he was almost practically saying the same thing.
Yes.
And so I'm sure you know, I can't remember, I think it's Mr. Lukman or something. And recent event is showing something similar, because let us take it from the point of the various arrests that is just going on. The arrest of the NLC national, the president, the supposedly invasion of Serap office by DSS.
Yes.
The arrest of those protesting against hunger and bad government and bad governance, as it were. And yesterday, during the arraignment, those young boys that practically will have next to nothing, we are asked to pay 10 million naira as bail. Those are the conditions, and under conditions, which of course they definitely cannot meet. So when you look at this in a democratic setting, you ask yourself what is really going on. And taking it a bit further, you have a president who several times when he was in opposition or even during the military era, led protests against bad governance, that to the large extent that he even had to go on exile. So you want to see somebody, I don't think it has been this bad. This is just 1 year. It wasn't this bad, and I stand to be corrected. During the 8 years of somebody you can even call a military dictator in the person of former President Muhammadu Buhari. That was a military man with a military background. So, so what we are seeing now is stifling of opposition voices, to me, to a large extent. And that in itself does not augur well for a democratic country like Nigeria. So, if
but just to you know, I mean, it probably wasn't. You may have your argument that it wasn't this bad because we probably didn't see like a direct intimidation of opposition voices. But it's Buhari's administration is still the one that broke into judges' houses, at night. Still the one that, of course, is blamed for the incident that happened on the October 20th in 2020, where protesters were allegedly killed, at the Lekki toll gate, and there's many other, situations where, of course, they weren't just arrested. If you remember in Zaria in 2015, the 347, according to official figures, unofficial figures say 500, maybe up to 1,000 people were killed on that day.
Yeah. And I tell you that I say 8 years of somebody that was taken as a military dictator. I say now we have somebody who's supposed to be a democrat. That's what I'm telling you. I'm just giving you differences, if you understand what I'm trying to say. So even if some of those things happen under the Buhari watch, but what I'm saying is that this is just 1 year, we're into 1 year, and this is happening. And it doesn't look at the embarrassment we give ourselves because of the so-called arrest of the president of the DSS. That took a national dimension where the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom had to even speak at the TUC meeting in London and was talking about Nigeria. So I don't think it needs to get to that. What I'm saying in essence is that let us just be very careful. Nigerians are suffering. There's no way. You cannot beat me and say I must not cry. It's not possible. For goodness sake. It's not in those days. It's not like in those days, my brother, that your mom will beat you and say, blame me. You must not cry. Those days that your parents will just say, cover your mouth, you must not. But these days, we have getting, for goodness sake, it has not gone into that. Nigerians are suffering. I think what should be more concerned now is addressing the issues being raised by Nigerians. The issue of poverty, the issue of insecurity, and other related issues. Security is on the high. For goodness sake. You see what is happening in the north, whereby the Minister of State has to even start directing service chiefs to go. A known bandit now is giving order and asking people to pay between 30 and 50 million for their lives to be secured. We have left the level of Boko Haram, and now bandits have taken over, which is even worse than what we had before. And you say people shouldn't talk. People will talk, for goodness sake. So those are the issues as far as I'm concerned. So I think this government should just be very, very careful the way they are going about things. Right. We are all Nigerians. Nobody is more Nigerian than the other. And those are the facts. Yeah. We all have this country, and this country belongs to each and every one of us. That is my take on this. So it's not just about Afenifere, everybody across border. And the most annoying part of it is that the opposition party that are supposed to be the voice of the people are having issues of their own. Credibility problem, internal wrangling, and rest of them. I don't know whether it's deliberate or for whatever reason.
Do you think it's sponsored?
I use the word deliberate. I can't use the word sponsor. I'm a law graduate, so I wouldn't say, because as journalists, we are not to dwell within the realms of rumors. I want to base this thing on fact. But what I'm saying that, is it a deliberate attempt on the part of the opposition to be doing what they are doing? I don't understand. But so we take it a bit higher. So now maybe we'll talk about the issue, which is also another airline, is that of Edo State election. Now, I saw the governor of Edo State coming out to tell the chairman of the Peace Committee, former head of state, Abdulsalami, that the PDP may not sign the peace accord. And he gave his reasons. He said that incessantly in the past few weeks, members of his party have been arrested and arrested and arrested. And he asked why. What is the problem? They are not only arrested, they are not being prosecuted. Before you know it, they are taken to Abuja and locked up.
Yeah.
If you understand what I'm trying to say.
Right.
And he said that in itself does not get that is a sign that there is the police have become sort of a party to what is going on, and they're going to support the APC or whatever party. So I think we should also be very, very careful, because Edo is another I have some passion for Edo for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
So those are areas where, because the election is just less than 2 weeks, I think it's on the 21st or 25th. And if this kind of issue is raising its head at this time, then the government must say, both INEC and the government must make sure that we'll have a level playing ground for all the parties to be able to participate in that election.
All right. Let's quickly speak with Lenin. Good morning, Lenin.
Oh, sorry. Good morning, Olive.
Good morning. Please go ahead.
Please, I want to talk about this, what we are experiencing in the country. You know, I've been saying things about it. Like, I want to talk about the Borno one. I heard that some money was given to some time ago to do the dam. Now they are blaming it on climate change. You know, Nigeria will like blame. We like blaming this government, will blame the other government, blame other. Instead of us to do this, to do the appropriate thing. My heart goes to the citizens, to the dwellers of Maiduguri. Like, I saw the thing yesterday, I was so heartbroken. These people should help Nigerians. We are ordinary people. We don't have parties. We just want to survive this country. They should stop blaming whoever. They should do the right thing. I know the water will dry up. By next year, this same thing will happen. I'm not praying it will happen, because they will not do anything. They will start the blame game again next year. So it's a blame. Blame game, blame. But they don't want to take accountability. In a same word, all these the people that were giving the money should be looked about something. They should be questioned.
All right. We'll take the Borno State story this morning. Thank you very much, Lenin, for calling. That'll be our final story, because we'll connect with our correspondent in Borno, who bring us live feed. But I want us to quickly take another story still this morning on the newspapers. On the front page, where is it? Oh, okay. All right. On the front page of the Punch newspaper, they're talking here about how hunger, I don't know if we've not yet touched it. Hunger protesters getting 100 million naira bill and barred from further demonstrations. Your thoughts on how the government so far has handled the hunger protesters? They've each been granted 10 million naira bill. They should bring sureties to the tune of 10 million. They should submit their passports. We had the Adeyonju, and part of the issues or the concerns he shared was the fact that not all these people are living in Abuja. They were all picked up from different parts of the country and then brought to Abuja to be tried.
I think I mentioned that in my opening. I talked about it, and I was saying that when you ask somebody to pay 10 million for bail, and you look at the people involved, then there is a problem. It also means that you practically don't want to get them released, because whatever offense they are, it's just protest. If there are those that were caught for looting, that's a different ballgame entirely. That is that can be charged, but just for protest. Protests have been guaranteed in the 1999 Constitution. It's a fundamental human right. Every Nigerian has the right to protest. So if you are now picking up people for protesting, and you now hand them into prisons, and now say that now granting them bail, and for goodness sake, once you be able to pick up somebody in Nigeria, you within 48 hours, the person is supposed to be charged.
But that's not the case here.
I'm coming. Within 24 or 48 hours, the person needs to be charged to court. If you are not going to charge the person to court, then you have to take the person to court and get an extension, which they did rightly. I know that they got some, but even at that, when you are asking this guy to pay 10 million as bail, for goodness sake, it's a bailable offense. How do they want to go about it? And if that's what they say.
I mean, the charges are treason. It's treason. I don't know if, okay, well, it's a bailable offense.
It is a bailable offense.
It's a bailable offense. It's a bailable, what is a bailable offense?
I think
it's only if it was murder.
Yes.
Then we'll say, okay.
It's a bailable offense.
I've seen the story and wanted us.
The danger, just as I said before, the danger is trying to criminalize protests.
Yeah.
When you are converting protests to treason. Yeah. That is the danger for me.
Okay. I've seen the story that I initially wanted us to talk about, that I was looking for. Marketers and refiners demand total subsidy reversal. But we'll come back to that. We have Abubakar calling from Abuja. Good morning, Abubakar. Thanks for calling. Please go ahead.
Hello, good morning, Central News Central.
Thank you for joining.
Go ahead.
I have just one contribution to make on the protest issue. Now, the government feels they are on top of their game. One, in the sense that the last protest did not yield anything. So even if you come from all walks of life and you have been banned not to even enter Abuja Central. What you do is to stop somewhere at the airport, stadium. I have never seen such protest in my life, where government will tell you that you are confined to a particular environment. Peaceful protest should be allowed. One, with this one that is coming up again now, they are not even afraid. They feel they have people that will hijack it. They are in power, they have the money, they can do what they want to do. And people that are hungry, the moment you throw something at them, before you know it, they will grab it. What is protest? We don't want to kill ourselves, and we cannot die for anybody. President Tinubu, please, we beg you in the name of God. You have been looking for this thing silently. You and Baba, the former chairman of the party, I can't remember his name. The old man there, that is just a special advisor. I beg all of them, let them do something. Nigerians are crying. They are crying for hunger. Hunger is something that you cannot hide. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Abubakar, for calling. I want us to talk about this story on the Punch newspaper. Marketers, refiners demand total subsidy removal. I just remember that line on social media where they say, is this plain? Is this joking? Do you see that possible?
Yeah, well, I don't know how possible that can be. But we were told on May 29, 2023 that subsidy has been removed. And that is what got us to where we are presently, because with that announcement, every other thing went up the roof. And report coming in has shown that we are paying subsidy. In fact, I'll take the bit back to 2015, pre-2015 election, where the former president, Muhammad Buhari, when he was a guest at Charterhouse during the campaign, and was asked about petroleum subsidy. What does it say? He said, there's nothing like petroleum subsidy. That is corruption. That is this thing. They should show him evidence that there's a petroleum subsidy. All those things that are crap. But throughout his 8 years, what did he do? He was paying, he was subsidizing petrol. So it is always easier for people to make pronouncements or make assertions. But when they get to the point, they know that it's not possible. And that is what happened. The president, instead of waiting for at least getting to office, wait for about a month or two, see what is on ground, and see whether truly this issue of subsidy or no subsidy can be removed. But he's hinging on the fact that, he wasn't the one that after all, that it was the former president that had put a cap on removal of subsidy. But even that subsidy was supposed to last till end of June. But he made that announcement on May 29, 2023. Everything went off. As he was just talking, before he came down from the rostrum, all the filling stations across Nigeria changed their prices. Yeah. And that has always been what was. So, and that is why I'm talking about the issue of transparency in governance. Come out and tell Nigerians the true story. If, and I continue to say that, if our refineries are working optimally, the issue of the pricing of petrol won't have been what have, because most of the petrol, close to about 90% of what we're using, or 95% of what they're looking, are imported. If we're having our refineries working, the freight it takes away, you take that away completely. The duties probably they pay, custom duty or whatever, you take that away. The VAT or whatever, you take that away. So it is localized.
So the only thing you likely would have as a deal is the refining cost
and local transportation.
Yeah, and of course, I think I mentioned it on Monday. Yes. When we were speaking with one of our guests on Monday, that James Faleke a few years ago had criticized the costing, for processing crude oil in Nigeria has been highest in the world. We currently, I think it was about $48, per barrel for processing crude oil in Nigeria. In Saudi Arabia, it was $9 or $10 a barrel, and that was one of the questions that was raised a couple of years ago. That why is it so expensive to process, Nigeria's crude or crude oil in Nigeria?
And ours is one of the best. The Brent crude, is one of the best in the world. Our crude oil is one of the best. When you're talking of chocolate, You know, there's some chocolate, you know what I'm talking about. There are some sound chocolate and what. Nigeria's oil, crude oil, is called the Brent. It's one of the best. There are different categories of crude oil.
Brent crude.
So you now realize that, and I ask, why is it possible for us to be able to refine? Look at the NNPC that is talking. For how many times have they shifted the post on the issue of trying to turn around and Port Harcourt refinery? Yeah. It's over a year now they're talking about it. Yeah. We've not even started talking of Warri. We've not started talking about the second, you know, there are 2 refineries in River State. Yeah. We've not talked of Kaduna. And now we're talking of Dangote. There's an issue now. Dangote, the pricing. Dangote said, we'll wait on Federal Executive Council. No, we're not going to wait for, we're going to wait for NNPC to be able to do. NNPC is the same thing with Dangote currently because it's a private company. NNPC is not longer a government. It's a private company just like Dangote. So NNPC cannot determine the price of petroleum for Dangote. And that's what we've been talking about. So the issue is so complicated that I don't know whether we should did this oil sector, whether there's one is because it's turned out to be the same thing like we have in the power sector. The power sector, for goodness sake, for close to 50 years, a country like Nigeria is generating and transmitting just 5,000.
5,000 on a good day.
On a good day. They can't even hit that 5 because every time they try to hit that 5,000, the whole thing will collapse.
Well,
is that not aberration?
It's embarrassing, you know, and you know, whether we want to accept it or not, you know, everyone would have their own, you know, reasons why we've been this way, you know, leadership failure, and many other things that could be mentioned. But you know, but we should say that it's embarrassing.
It is very embarrassing
that we've not been able to sort this thing out, and there's not one government that has come into office and said
the least
that
problem across most developing countries, even developed countries, is power. Power is the least of their problem, and we are still battling with over. This is 2025. Let me say we don't reach about 6. How many years we don't do now? We don't get independence. We cannot provide power for ourselves.
All right, let's quickly talk about the flood. In Borno State, over 30 confirmed deaths on the Daily Trust, 30 confirmed dead, 1 million affected. On other newspapers this morning, it gives different figures. But of course, you know, the Punch still continues to say, you know, the same thing, 1 million affected, 414,000 displaced.
And I want you to speak regarding the different conversations that the flood has sparked. There are those who say that the government should not be blamed. There are those who say that it's a function of climate change. But the details that we have is the dam that was broken. So what are your thoughts regarding, you know, the possibility that maybe this has occurred because there hasn't been maintenance of these dams, you know, structural maintenance, and should we really hold the government to account?
This probably would be addressed as disaster foretold. If the story is making the rounds, that's why I want to listen to your correspondent because there have been a lot of stories. I don't know. We don't even know the true story. They said that it was the dam was built over 40 years or 50 years ago that's supposed to be maintained. It was not maintained. The secondly, that another dam ought to have been built to be able to take off some volume of water from that one that it was not built at. If that is the case, the question you ask yourself, who built the dam? It's government.
Yes.
So, of course, if that is the situation, and that is the real case, and then the government needs to be blamed. But the problem I'm having is the social effect on the lives of Nigerians. Let us start. To go into the prison, about 200 to 300 or whatever number of prisoners have escaped from Maiduguri prison. All the ones that escaped from Imo, escaped from Kogi, escaped from Akure, Edo State, till now, not up to 5 or 3% of them are able to find themselves way back into the prison. And we are talking of insecurity. Okay. That is one. Then the lives of the people. Now crocodiles, big snakes, and all the rest is now they are competing. Lions are now competing with human beings on the street of Maiduguri and the rest of them. That is this effect. Then when you see the devastation of that flood, so many lives, people's lives have been rendered useless for life. Some people built their house over 30, 20 years ago or 50 years ago. They cannot even go back to that house again. Yeah. Everything they have has gone totally. Now you are having serious security problem in Borno State. You are moving over 1 million again to IDP camp. Yeah. That in itself is going to hide the level of insecurity in land. Because if the people cannot feed themselves, then of course they become easy tool for all these recruits, all these bandits and all the rest of them to be able to recruit them. And We are talking out of school children in the north. Majority of the victims of this flood are going to be children and women, the vulnerable.
I mean, first of all,
those are the big issues within the flood that we have. So it's not just about the flood, but the social and economic effect of that flood.
And how long is it even going to take the state to, for the
so
flood to last?
This one, if that report is right, then it has nothing to do with climate change.
All right, let's bring in our correspondent who's in Borno State now. We have Umar Kirawa joining us live from Maiduguri. Good morning, Umar Kirawa. What's the update regarding the flood?
Well, the update is that the water is... Hello?
We can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yes, I said the update is that the water is gradually receding within the state capital, within the metropolis, that's Maiduguri. However, people are going through very difficult times, particularly at the IDP camp. Some of them are trying to survive. So they are going through very difficult times with their resilience of going through the years of insurgency, and now others are experiencing the flood, the flood, and even camping at displaced persons camp for the first time. So it's actually just time for super reflection for many. But right now, if you can see behind me, this is a clinic at the Bakassi IDP camp where patients and patient relatives put in their numbers to receive medical treatment. One of the patient relatives will tell us more with regard to her experience and what he is doing. Now, so the purpose there is
all right, we'll have to, unfortunately, we might have to reconnect with you much later because we're struggling with your audio, Umaru. So we hope that maybe when we reconnect with you this time, maybe try it out without the AirPods, and we'll see if we can have a conversation about that. But, you know, as we wrap up this newspaper review, I think that you've highlighted certain key areas. Yes, it's good news to hear that the water is receding in Borno, but we've not even fathomed the economic impact of what this will cause to the state, to the nation, the lives that have been lost, people who will need to start all over again. There are people who are currently separated from their families. They don't know where their families are because of the flood. I saw the videos and I shuddered because it feels like, you know, the hurricanes we see abroad, and we're saying to ourselves, oh, we pray for this country or pray for that country, and now it feels like this is happening to us at home.
Yes, it's just unfortunate. And when you now add that to the hunger that's already ravaging the country. Yeah.
I mean, farmlands are going to be wiped away, with that.
That's it. And, you know, Borno State is noted for insecurity, but what most people don't know that it's also a food basket to a large extent. Most of the fish in Nigeria that we take in Nigeria comes from Borno. There are some areas within the Borno State that is noted for such. So it's also going to add a lot of problem to the serious economy. And that is why, and on a final note, my problem has always been in Nigeria is our disaster management mechanism. We don't. And probably, with all sense of humility, probably that is what God has blessed us with, one particular problem, which is leadership.
Yeah.
If you understand what I mean. God has given us that one, our own wahala, our own natural disaster, that one. Yeah. Because if this or that natural disaster that is happening across the globe happen here, you are talking of tsunami. Imagine having a tsunami in Nigeria, or having earthquake, or having those of what. There will be no this thing. So that is so we have NEMA, we have the state, this thing, and agencies and the rest of them. None of them even know what to do in terms of disaster management. I mean, and that has always been the issue.
I mean, I wouldn't say that they don't know what to do, because I know there's SEMA, there's NEMA, there's, I mean, all these bodies exist.
Even states have their own.
The State Emergency Management Agency,
yes. Except for Lagos to a large extent. Except for Lagos. In Lagos, you can give it to them. If anything happens, is it fire? Is it building collapse? You see that quickly there's a level of intervention. It might not be as quickly as you bet. You see that there will be some level of. Go to some certain states. You have a building collapse for 2 days. They've not seen anybody coming to be able to look at what's happening.
I mean, questions need to be asked as to, you know, what kind of funding they receive and what they could do with the funding that they, you know, receive, you know, when, you know, there's a flooding like this. But I would once again just remind us that we need to go back to where the key blame should be, and this is what I started with, that yes, it could be a natural disaster, no doubt. It could be that the rains fell and this was more rains than we've ever seen in Borno's history. Okay. But at the same time, we could also, look at the Alo Dam that has been mentioned. That if this dams collapse, it's because that dam was not rehabilitated when it should have, been in 1994, in 2012, in the previous times when it has collapsed. Then government must be held accountable. But we don't just have enough value for the average Nigerian life for us to be able to hold government accountable and say that you failed. And that's the reason that we've lost 30 people. We've lost 100 people. We've lost farmland. We've lost property because you failed to rehabilitate a dam that was your responsibility 10, 15, 12, 20 years ago. And that's my point.
Let me start off with this. The cheapest commodity in Nigeria now is life. Take that to the bank. The cheapest, that's my take off this evening. The cheapest commodity in Nigeria now is life.
Again, I think another way to put that is, what is the value of the Nigerian life?
That is it. What is life worth in Nigeria?
It
is very cheap.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Always a good conversation here with you. Just a very sad note we're ending with, unfortunately, but that's the reality of Nigerians right now. We're going to break, and when we come back, more conversations. News Central recently had an exclusive chat with 2023 Labour Party presidential candidate, Mr. Peter Obi, the Managing Director, Editor-in-Chief, Mr. Kaide Akintemi, in a no-holds-barred interview with the former Anambra State Governor, spoke on issues currently affecting the country. One of the many areas highlighted in the one-hour interview is the health sector. Mr. Peter Obi spoke about the excessive spending by the current administration to the detriment of other sectors, including the health sector. Let's take a look.
If you talk about your health care, the most important part of your health care is your primary health care. That is the foundation. We have today overtaken India in infant mortality, 7 times our population, and the capital budget of our primary health care for the whole nation is about 59 billion. The cost of our presidential jet at 100 million is about 160 billion. That is 3 times our primary health care.
And this is not the only private jet that the president has.
Just the new one we purchased.
Just the new one.
They said it's 100. We don't know the actual figure because they need to reconfigure it and everything. So
when you say they need to reconfigure it, are you suggesting the numbers are being massaged?
You can, of course, stream the full interview on our YouTube page. We are at News Central TV on YouTube and, of course, all media platforms. And watch, of course, that 1 hour exclusive interview. Very interesting from some of the comments that we've seen. A lot of people seem to like it. And, of course, enjoy his views on many national issues, I believe. So, yes, check it out on our YouTube page and have your say as well. Leave a comment as well, and let us know what you think about those conversations. We hope, and of course we encourage other major political figures in Nigeria to also please stop by at the News Central office and, have an exclusive interview.
I think that's a very key part you just highlighted. Peter Obi has stopped by. It would be great to have Alhaji Atiku Abubakar stop by for an interview. It'd be great to have the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu stop by for an interview. It would be great to have these leaders. I think that one of the best ways in which leaders can communicate their vision, like we had this conversation about the vision of the country with our guest earlier, Abraham Great, is to have conversations with the media. The media is not your enemy. The media is your friend. And the way that, you can communicate this to the people that you're leading is through the media as the voice. So yes, to having more leaders come out. And I think that it should, in the coming years, it should be a prerequisite that we start to have more and more conversations with the media. We have more town hall meetings. We have more debates, gubernatorial debates, presidential debates. I'm thinking of a way we can work it into our system of screening that it's mandatory.
Listen, Nigerians need to value themselves more and tell themselves that as a voter, I deserve the best. I deserve a person who can speak to the media, who would show up for debates, who would do his town hall, who would do whatever rallies, but still show up and speak with the press and speak to an extent brilliantly on economic issues, on
Not to an
healthcare, on
extent,
security.
please. Let's remove that
No,
to
no,
an extent.
because I don't want anyone to feel like you need to have a PhD on every of these topics before you can be president. You don't have to, but at least
what you need to
speak
have
brilliantly enough to let Nigerians understand your ideas and say that, okay, yes, these are brilliant ideas.
Yes.
But Nigerians need to value themselves enough, because you still see one of the people that we've spoken with this week, you know, it still feels like it's not so necessary that a president shows up to debate or to show up to interview.
And it's interesting because we are the same people who will then watch when Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are having a go at each other and doing presidential debates. Say what you want about either party. They're showing up. They recognize that their citizens are important enough. Their citizens are their employers. They're important enough for them to show up before the citizens and argue their case and say, look, this is what I have to offer to you. Choose me, because if you choose me, this is how I will make your lives better. This is how I make your country better. And that's what we're lacking here in Nigeria. Politicians who talk to citizens is very missing. So yes, like we said earlier, you can check out our YouTube platform to see what Peter Obi said in the 1 hour exclusive, and we look forward to having other political leaders here at News Central speak with us. We're going to break now, and when we come back, we'll have what Nigerians are saying. Today on What Nigerians Are Saying, we want to hold a candle for our brothers and our sisters in Borno State, Maiduguri, where they have to deal with the flood. That's not just killed a number of people, set animals free. You know, there have been reports of prisoners who have been let out of prison, separated families. There have been reports of families who do not know where their other family members are. It's a really trying time, a very difficult time for Nigerians. The stories are that the Alao Dam had broken apart, and as a result of the breaking of the Alao Dam, this flood is a result. There have been criticism leveled against the government about how the government should have been held to account in terms of ensuring that they prevented this from happening, and that the way that the government could have prevented this from happening is ensuring that there had been structural amendments or infrastructural developments that had been done to this dam. We have a tweet from Zainab, and this lady had talked about how the government should not be blamed. She says it is crucial that we avoid placing the blame on government, as this is an act of God. And then she says, with Allah's will, this too shall pass, and he will bring relief to our people. And whilst I understand that perspective, or whilst a number of us understand the perspective about the will of God, the government also has a role to play in ensuring that it keeps to the promises that it has made to its people. It is the government's responsibility to guarantee the safety, the security, and the territorial integrity of the people of Nigeria. And in case where the government has failed to do that, the government must be held to account. We're going to do more investigation and more digging into these stories. We have our correspondent, Umaru Kirawa, who's in Maiduguri, reporting live and bringing updates, speaking to some of the people who are there. But beyond what the people are saying in Maiduguri, let's head to X to find out what people are saying on social media. Our first tweet this morning is from someone with a handle, Bio Extension. It says, in Maiduguri, we are all IDPs, because even if you're unaffected, a family, friend, or a good business partner somewhere is. Let your heart light a candle and help those affected. One hand washes the other before they can both the face. And that's a very key statement there. Flood in Maiduguri has decimated my community, lives shattered, homes in ruins, hope lost. Desperate cries fill the streets. Families torn apart, children orphaned, feeling helpless. Please hold us in your thoughts and prayers. We're on the brinks of collapse. And the next tweet, still talking about the Maiduguri flood, says, it's so sad seeing the house you are born and raised in taken down by the flood. And this really paints a picture of what the reality is in Maiduguri and how a number of people have to let go of these memories that they've grown up with. Call your families, friends, and acquaintances in Maiduguri. The flood seems wider than thought. I plead relief for our brothers and sisters in Maiduguri. The next tweet says, the truth is, my relatives have been calling all the emergency numbers, but there's no response. I mean, this is a really sad story, a sad update there. I'm hoping that the said person and other people have gotten access to emergency relief. We hear the Red Cross and the Army have been very instrumental in helping. Let's go back to the tweets before this. Suwaibu Abdul Rashid says, imagine receiving messages like this from people you love dearly. You think I can be able to lie in peace? You know why you're saying this? It's for you to help too, directly or indirectly. It's crazy out there, very. And then look at the kind of messages that Suwaibu had talked about receiving. It says, oh, my mom got separated while trying to get to Muna Garage. 2 people told my dad they saw her, but we still can't reach her. My sister is trapped. She couldn't move out with her 3 children. Her son is sick. That's one of the messages he got. The next one says, by this time of the night, Susu, the water is still persisting far. Woke up in the middle of the night to hearing people who accommodate us packing us as well. And then the person got further to talk about what their chances of survival are and saying that this is the worst nightmare of their life. And the final tweet we're taking this morning is from Dr. Emenike Okoro. He says, look at the devastation and destruction of lives and properties in Borno State. This could have been avoided. What we are seeing now is the product of years of neglect and systemic failure. We cannot pretend any longer that tragedies like this are beyond our control. And this thought process by Dr. Emenike is one that a number of Nigerians share as well. On the one hand, there are conversations about what really is an act of God, and what really is beyond control. The floods have been warned about. NEMA has been putting out warnings about states that are likely to experience immense flooding. What have the governors in these states done? In this case, the dam collapsed, according to reports, 30 years ago, this bad, and there was another flooding. In the past 30 years, was any maintenance done to this dam? Was there any form of structural maintenance? These are the questions that Nigerians are asking. But at this time, we want to say that our thoughts, our hearts, and our prayers are with our sisters and our brothers in Borno, to those who have lost their lives, to those who are mourning the loss of life as they know it, because life will never remain the same. And there's no telling how long it will take for them to be able to recover from the damage that has been done. So, like we do say prayers for other parts of the country, pray for Maiduguri. And that's all we have this morning on what Nigerians are saying. We'll be wrapping up the show and want to say thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back again same time tomorrow to wrap up this week's edition of Breakfast Central. Remember to continue the conversation on social media at News Central TV, to also check out our YouTube channel to watch the exclusive interview with His Excellency Peter Obi. We'll be back again tomorrow. Do stay well. I am Olive Emodi.
And I am Osaogi Ogbon. See you tomorrow.